everyone, this is Kim with Abundant Life Tarot, and we are continuing our conversation about divine discontentment, or divine discontent for short. We first talked about what is it? What does it look like? What could it look like in your life? How would it show up in your life? And now, in this part, we're going to discuss, now what? What do you do when you recognize and identify that you have divine discontent in your life, whether it's in your work life, whether it's in your love life, or any other area of your life, your living situation, where you at one point was totally content, and then the next point you feel something like something bugging you. It could be something bugging you, or it could just be a nagging feeling or an inner thought that keeps getting louder and louder in your mind, you know, and you're trying to work through it. Maybe this is something that'll pass, but oftentimes it's not something that's going to pass. I mean, certain things like relationships, those do ebb and flow because people change, right? Or they don't change, and so that's the dynamic of what's going on with relationships. But with jobs, especially living situations, there are times when you, and I would even say certain relationships, there are times when the universe is signaling to you it's time to do something different. It's time to move on and do something else. But yet we linger and stay longer in situations because we're afraid of change. We're afraid to move forward. We're afraid to take a chance, take a leap. We are afraid that we're not going to be able to pay our bills. We worry we're going to let people down. We worry that we're going to be homeless. I mean, the sky is the limit for all the, well, I mean, very valid reasons, of course, to not take a leap of faith. But when you really decide to take a leap of faith and to just simply acknowledge that you are not happy in a certain area, and then B, you acknowledge that you have the power and you will do something to change this discontentment, you know, that's where it's at. That is where it's at. No one can live your life but you. Everyone's going to have an opinion about what you're doing. You're going to have even your own opinion about what you're doing. Yeah, you've got bills. Those are real concerns. But there are ways to strategically work out things where you can be able to be okay and still move forward without having a lot of disruption in your life. But you've got to acknowledge that there is an area in your life that is not pleasing anymore to you, that's not fulfilling anymore. And it's a worthwhile endeavor, because the longer you go down a path that you're really not meant to go down any further, the further down you go is the further away you're getting from where you're really trying to go. And, you know, it's not to say that you can't have that journey. You can most certainly have that journey and take as long as you want to get there. Many of us do. But if you are really unhappy, where divine discontentment is showing up in your health, it's showing up in your attitude, it's you know, like you have a negative attitude or negative outlook in life, it's showing up in, you know, your relationships, failed or just relationships that are difficult. You've got to do something. You can't sit idly by and not do something. You hold the power to make changes. Even if you have debt, there's always a solution to something. There's always a way to do something to get yourself out of feeling like this. So, I mean, I can give you several of my own personal stories. Before I move on to that, though, I told my son, my oldest, Dante, is moving out. And he's moving across the country. He's made this decision a long time ago that this was what he wanted to do. He's been called to go do that. And at first I tried to tell him, no, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. He's not listening to me because he's listening to something deeper inside of him, that a calling that's beyond what his mom could tell him. And I have to step back and let him do that. And that's what other people are going to have to do with you when you're starting to exercise your freedom. And the advice I gave him just simply was something like to the effect of, every day, especially when you're first starting out as a young adult, is about a refinement of making your day a little bit better than the day before. That's what it is about adulting. And if you do make it a little bit better than the day before, you scored. You did good. And if you didn't do so well, you probably learned something. And that's a good thing too. But it's a constant refinement. And your goal is to aim to make your day a little bit better than before. And sometimes you're going to make leaps and bounds changes in a few days that will make you super happy. And sometimes you might even take a couple of steps back. But overall, it will be a general refinement in most people's cases. Not everyone, obviously. I mean, we've seen cases, I'm sure, around us that that's not the case. But let's see if I saw one of the many things I'm leaving on him or imparting on him. But, you know, when you feel that divine discontent, what would you think you would want to do? Many people want to curl up. They want to drink. They want to smoke weed. They want to do drugs. They want to shop. They want to maybe get in a lot of different relationships and not really spend a lot of alone time dealing with their thoughts. They want to ignore. They want to numb. And, you know, numbing works for a little while. And really everyone should have a period of numbing. But you know what that period of numbing should be for? It should be for that period of when you are ready to leave and leaving to your new opportunity. Too often, though, that frustration point comes way past that, way past it, where you're just like, I don't give a damn, I need out. And then you're running off from one situation that you really didn't like to another situation that may not be the best either. So being careful with your divine discontentment is crucial to making the right next steps. You want to sit down and journal. You want to journal about what it is that's really bugging you. Where's the discontentment really lying? Where is that at? See if you can journal it. If you're not coming up with anything with the journaling free flow, like writing, just pen to paper, don't lift it up for 5 minutes after you've purged it off. If nothing comes out, try, you know, some meditation, guided or not guided. Try talking it out. You may have to go see a counselor. Maybe you can go see a life coach, talk to a confidant, to be able to kind of work through what is it that, where's the discontentment lying? And if it's in your work life, then you have to analyze, what about my work life is it that I don't like, or it's not in alignment with me anymore? Have I changed, or has the workplace changed? Often it's us changing and evolving, and our tastes are growing, and what we desire, we want to do with the rest of our lives is what it's at. But at first, it looks like it's out there. It looks like all the problems are out there being put upon us, not realizing that we have been shifting and changing, and we are now no longer really fitting in with the paradigm that's been going on for a while. And it's really us that has shifted and changed. But we start to project and we start to put out, and then it becomes this vicious cycle where we're like, I don't understand why so-and-so's treating me like this. Well, what you don't realize is that you set an intention a long time ago, probably to leave for a better job opportunity, or to move to a better situation, or to be in a loving relationship. And now that it's not happening, you know, it's not because it's not supposed to happen, period. It's because it's not going to happen in this environment that you're in right now. So it's time to shift and grow. But we stay too long. We end up staying way longer than necessary. So if it's in your job area, then start journaling about what kind of work you do want to do. If you weren't paid, you know, what would feel good to do for 8+ hours a day? You know, what would feel good to you? Of course, if you want to add the monetary element, what would feel great to you to be paid for and be doing those services? Would you feel better working in a nonprofit situation versus a for-profit, or vice versa? Would you feel better working for yourself or working for someone else if you work for yourself? Again, a refinement, trying to analyze and see, where is that divine discontentment at, and then what could be done to alleviate it and to move forward from it. And so you're doing your homework, and then once you kind of realize, oh, it is my job. Oh, I'm upset because they've told us in our current, my current employer has said they're not going to be doing any more hiring. In fact, they may be scaling back and may even be demoting people or laying people off. And you already have been feeling certain kind of ways about being there. At that point is when you're like, let me start to assess some things. And you'll realize that the unhappiness that you had in your workplace has now started to spill out into other areas of your life. And that's when you really know you have to do something. Now it's time to look, keep your feelers out, look out for work you want to do. Start talking to people who work in that field or work in that line of work or work in the agency that you want to be a part of, and planting seeds there, updating your resume, writing a cover letter, having it ready, even if you have no jobs lined up, or just being on the ready is crucial when you're dealing with divine discontent. Some people never get a chance to deal with divine discontentment because they're constantly knowing that their life is in transition and they are ahead of the game. They are ready when a job posting is coming because they know that they are going to want to change in 1 or 2 years. So that's how they operate. But for some of us, we don't operate like that. And so you have to work with yourself on that. You'll get to know who you are with divine discontentment. It really shapes who you are as a person, what your desires are, what you don't like, and what kind of work you should be doing with your time. You're spending some time now with yourself, with your desires, your thoughts, your feelings, your aspirations for your future, making sure they're in alignment, and then taking baby steps to get there each day until finally one day you look up and you've got all these different offers because you've been starting way back when to do that. Now, that's just a job scenario. There's many other scenarios where divine discontentment happens, like in relationships, marriages. And it's a similar thing where you have to, if you really have come to a point after you've done some soul searching and some sitting with your thoughts and sitting by yourself and meditating and journaling, you've come to the conclusion that it's your relationship that needs to come to an end. Again, there's a delicate process you can do, but it can happen. You can go through that process. You just have to be careful and make sure you're ready for that, and make sure you've thought of everything, especially if other family members like children are involved. You just want to be careful with their feelings. But you can't, again, you can't live your life for other people. And that includes, you can't live your life necessarily for your children. A lot of us get caught up in these things where we have to do things for the sake of the kids. And yeah, that's a noble thing. But you can do things for the sake of kids and still, keep your happiness and, as a priority. Your happiness is just as much a priority as your kids. So if staying in a loveless relationship, if you think staying in a loveless or even abusive, whether it's emotionally, physically, financially, mentally, whatever, even that, ask yourself, is that really serving the kids well? If for them to see me just kind of settling in life, is that really what I want to show them? Or do I want to show an example of me being strong and saying, you know what, I deserve better, you all deserve better, and I'm going to do better? I think that says a lot more than the whole, I'm just going to stick it out and wait 18 plus years and then see what happens. I don't know about you, but I have a lot of living to do, and I think we all do. A wake-up call happened a few times in the last, I'd say, 7 years or so. Oh, my apologies. I have a call coming through. I have to reject it. That threw me off. Anyways, not that important, but you have to prioritize your happiness. And if you don't, no one else is. Not even your spouse. I mean, your spouse will probably be the closest, your parents too. But not even really your kids, your friends, other relatives. That's not their responsibility to do. That's your responsibility to take ownership of your feelings, of checking in periodically to see if you're at where you want to be. You know, it's challenging to be in a place of divine discontentment and you feel trapped. But you have to understand you are not trapped. You can take baby steps to get to where you're trying to go, and it could work out. It could be fine. I quit my job. I didn't have any jobs lined up. And it was because divine discontent grew so much inside of me that I was just like, there's no way that I can go on like this, being unhappy. So I'm going to take a chance. And it's paying off for me so far. And sometimes you're not going to know if what you're doing is right, but you will know immediately once you make the decision if you have peace around it or not. And if you don't have peace with it, maybe you need to work on that. But after doing soul searching, if it's time to go, especially from relationships, then it's time to be strategic and go and do it. Don't sacrifice your happiness. Don't sacrifice your health and well-being. Don't wait for tomorrow, because tomorrow is not promised. Oh, that's why I was saying that I had many instances where in my life, you know, if you want to call them near-death experiences, you can. But I've also had, those weren't even also really life-shaking for me, like losing 3 dear friends in 1 year, like really good friends of mine. And that broke my heart. And it broke my heart for a number of reasons. A, because I was selfish and I missed them terribly. B, because all 3 of them were young. And I felt like they still had so much living to do, so much living to have in this world. And it was cut short in my opinion, even though it's just my opinion. And I was like, I don't want to sit in a cubicle at a company I'm just not called to be at anymore. And that divine discontentment grew and grew and grew until I couldn't suppress it anymore. I couldn't hide it anymore. People, you know, and people normally would see a sunny disposition and they were like, what's going on? You're not sunny anymore. You're not happy. And, you know, you'll get outside signals, people telling you, ooh, you don't seem so happy. And you'll start to hear that more often. What you are to do, what is next to do, is to do some detective work to figure out, pinpoint where it's coming from, and then start to take baby action steps and write goals. Write out goals, you know, set concrete plans and goals in place. Get a notepad out, a fresh, beautiful notepad. You're going to want to write all your future goals in, put it in there. You won't regret it. Because you'll come back later, a few weeks later, a few months later, a few years later, and you'll be like, oh, well, look at there. I manifested that. Oh, wow. Those goals came about because I had this divine discontentment. Many of my goals, many of my affirmations that I create for myself came about because there was some kind of divine discontentment in my life in a certain area that needed to be worked on. Whether it was my weight, whether it was my health, whether it was my job, my family. So I just invite you to explore that a little bit more in your life. I think it's a powerful tool. It helps me tremendously, especially when I'm angsty and trying to pick out why I'm so bothered about a person or a situation. And then I realize it usually always comes back to me, something that I need to look at closer and work on. And then I work on it, and then life is good in that area. So, you know, there you have it. That is what to do next. And I'm looking at my board behind it. We are going to talk about the other side in part 3 of dealing with divine discontentment. And that is really looking at, after you've made your your changes after you've taken some divinely guided steps, after you've meditated and affirmatively prayed and claimed the future you're wanting and just stepping into it each day, little by little. What does that look like on the other side from the time that you were very unhappy, or maybe mildly unhappy to very unhappy, to go to identifying where that unhappiness came from or where it's stemming from, to also working on fixing it with what's in your power. And then part 3, the other side, after you've done that work. What is that? What does that look like for you, and what to do next with that? All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. So much love and many, many big blessings to all of you. I will see you all in the next video.